Is it really possible that America has elected its first female vice president, but is still lagging in equal rights? For centuries, women have been fighting to be seen and treated as equal, and have been pushed to supporting roles to the men in their lives. When women began to break from the cult of true womanhood, which defined women as being valuable and worthy based on their submissiveness to their husbands, nurturing of their children, and care and management of their homes and family, it created discomfort for those who appreciated the status quo. Primarily, the pushback came from the men who long enjoyed their standing as decision makers and head of households. Relegating the women in their lives to supporting roles and saw no reason those roles should change or why it would possibly be important for women to have a say in anything beyond their domestic responsibilities. While women were granted the right to vote with the passage of the 19th Amendment exactly 100 years ago in 1920, there is still a great deal of work to do in leveling the playing field so that women may be treated and feel as though they are seen as equal to men. It seems that although women have come so far as to now be one seat away from the presidency, they are still vastly underrepresented in positions of power, and that needs to change in order to finally reach true parity with men. One of the easiest ways to judge equality is by how much money men and women make for doing the same job. The White House, while under Barack Obama, stated that women are almost half the workforce. They are equal, if not the main breadwinners, in 4 out of 10 families. Yet, while women are holding down approximately the same number of jobs as men in the US, they are vastly underpaid in comparison to their male counterparts. In a 2017 study conducted by the Pew Research Center, participants of both genders claimed that they believe that men have it easier than women in the US, with focus primarily on workplace inequality, specifically mentioning that men are paid more than women and have greater employment opportunities and preferential treatment. The Institution for Pay Scale also stated that in 2020, women in the US were paid only 82 cents for each dollar that a man makes doing the same job. According to the National Women's Law Center, nearly two-thirds of minimum wage workers in the US are women. And at that current rate of movement and pay equality, women won't receive equal pay until the year 2058. Beyond the workplace and pay equality, and far from being an afterthought, women's rights most certainly involve the ability to make decisions over their own bodies. Very hotly debated and a very large subject in its own right, a woman's right to choose has faced its own challenges throughout our country's history. Abortions have been recorded in U.S. history dating back to the 1800s and have faced legal and ethical battles ever since. By the end of the 19th century, abortion was deemed an illegal act. Over the next few centuries, abortion has been legalized in various states, criminalized in others, and it was ultimately deemed legal on a federal level by the United States Supreme Court with their ruling in Roe v. Wade. On January 22, 1973, the Supreme Court ruled that criminalizing and restricting a woman's right to an abortion is unconstitutional, as it violates her right to privacy and liberty in due process proportion of the 14th Amendment. However, that ruling by the highest court in our country has not stopped opponents' attempts to limit and legislate women's choices and the governing of their own bodies. Individual states have recently made rulings that abortion cannot be terminated as soon as a fetal heartbeat is detected, pushing back even more on the federal ruling. Regardless of what side of the issue someone falls on, boiling it down to the simplest form, taking away a woman's right to make choices and govern her own body is and would be a major blow to women's rights. While women represent nearly half of the U.S. workforce, it is not just the inequality of wages that shows the disparity between genders. Gender discrimination in the workplace extends beyond pay. The lack of representation of women in positions of power demonstrates the need for monitoring and changes advocated by and for previous administrations. According to a March 2018 study by Pew Research, women still only account for 5% of Fortune 500 CEOs, 20% of Fortune 500 board members, about 20% of Congress, 25% of state legislative members, and only 6 out of 50 female governors. In comparison to other countries, the US ranks 75th out of 193 countries in terms of women's representation in government. Clearly, there's a long way to go in regard to parity in power and decision-making positions in the U.S. And although women have made gains in education and rate of employment according to the status of women in the states, men are 2.2 times more likely to work in STEM occupations than women, with these occupations going at faster and higher paying rates of pay than most. Despite the so-called safeguard and legislation aimed to protect women in the workplace, according to a December 2017 Pew Research study, 42% of the female participants said that they have experienced some form of gender discrimination at work, and about 1 in 5 women in the U.S. say that they have been sexually harassed at work. These factors show the continued need for additional legislation to ensure equitable opportunities and safe workplaces for women nationwide. Women have fought for centuries to be treated as equal to men in all aspects of life. Whether it's in the boardroom, their own homes, or the West Wing of the White House, women and men still have work to do to ensure parity and fair treatment, no matter the setting or situation. To anyone that thinks that there's no need to continue the fight to advance women's standing, take a look at the fact that National Women's Party proposed that the so-called Equal Rights Amendment in 1923, specifically written to prohibit discrimination on the basis of sex. After multiple reiterations and attempts to pass it, almost a century later, the Equal Rights Amendment has yet to be ratified. With women still so greatly underrepresented in government, it is no wonder that an amendment with such clear messaging about equality is still waiting to become a part of the supreme law of the land. While many see Kamala Harris's election as vice president, an indication that the glass ceiling has been shattered, work must continue to advance understanding and belief that women are capable of the same work as men, should be paid equally for that work, and more than content to make choices about their own bodies. It is not until those ideals and protections are solidified that women can truly be treated and feel as though they are equal in the eyes of the law.